to Praxis Pulse, a Praxis podcast where we explore the questions shaping the future of education, careers, and leadership. I am Pallavi Shrivastava, a second-year PGDM student at Praxis Business School. Today, we are discussing a question that thousands of students are asking across the country right now. Is pursuing an MBA still relevant? This question feels more relevant than ever. We are living in a time when industries are transforming rapidly. AI is reshaping the work, and careers are evolving faster than ever. In the midst of this, students are left with conflicting opinions across the internet. Some say MBA is still the most valuable investment. Others say that it has lost its relevance. This leaves the students with questions like, should I invest 2 years in management education? Is it truly valuable? And how do I even know if I am choosing the right program? To unpack these questions, I'm glad to be joined by someone who has consistently focused on preparing the students for the future. The founder of Praxis Business School, Professor Charanpreet Singh. Sir, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me here. And I think we'll have an interesting conversation on something which is on top of the mind for a lot of students like you.
So let me begin with the most fundamental question. Today, students have access to online certifications, creator-led courses, and a lot of access to self-education platforms. So amidst this, a lot of students are asking that is an MBA still relevant? What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I know that there are a lot of people, talking about it, and it's almost trending, But let's take a look at what is the objective of education. The objective of education is to improve the quality of our lives, to understand the world better, to create better options for our livelihood, to be able to do good to society. So education is not just about a quick kind of fix about a skill or So these these certifications and all, I think they're playing an outstanding role in supplementing what we traditionally call education. But I don't think that education, in its fundamental form, is going to change dramatically. In at least in terms of its structure. So MBA is part of that, and students kind of spend between 1 and 2 years, studying together, building a community, building a network, and learning a lot of skills, which short-term programs would probably not be able to, deliver. Now the moot question is, because of the things that you talked about, that everything is changing, AI is disrupting, knowledge is no longer probably as difficult to access as it used to be. So instead of debating whether MBA is relevant or not, I think the more debatable question is, what kind of an MBA is relevant? So I think that's where the conversation should be. And we will unfurl this as we move forward in the conversation.
So the real question is not whether MBA has lost its relevance, it's about choosing it wisely.
Yeah, and also I think the onus is on the people who run these MBA programs to make it relevant. I mean, it's like any other industry, when new technology, new consumer behavior, new forms of disruptions come, industries either evolve or they die. And I think it's the same for, let's say, a lot of people are saying not only about an MBA, but even degree programs, formal education, 3 years, 4 years, but students need to, kind of stick to those kind of, long-term investments. And I would say that a 4-year degree program is and has to continue reinventing itself to be relevant, just like any other industry.
Yes, sir. So there's another conversation across social media that we hear every day, that MBA is outdated and expensive. Don't do an MBA. You can learn everything online. So how should we as students evaluate these claims?
Social media is full of a lot of things, right? And you have to use your judgment. So let's look at it again, in another way. So when we say is MBA relevant or not, we are I think kind of losing sight of the target audience. I don't think there's any course in the world that is relevant for everyone. Right? So we have to look at the world is about options. So let's say you finished your graduation, you may have worked for a couple of years, or maybe you haven't. You want to build a career, right? What have you done in your undergraduation? What kind of a career are you looking at? And what are the skills and frameworks and knowledge that you need to gain to build a successful career there? And looking at all of this, does an MBA fit? So if you are somebody who wants to get into deep research, get into become a research scholar and maybe a professor, of anthropology, doesn't require an MBA. Right? But let's say you want to become an investment banker, and you want to become, let's say, the CMO of a global FMCG. I think MBA is not only relevant, probably mandatory, right? So you have to. I think students have to. Social media is fine. I mean, there are positives and negatives of social media. So you get a lot of information. You have to look at that information and look at yourself, and then decide whether is this information maybe there's nothing called an absolute truth, right? So where am I in my life? What are my aspirations? You have to think independently, and then decide how do I get from point A to B, and does an MBA play a role? Rather than saying whether MBA is relevant or not relevant. I think that's I don't think, and a lot of people who are talking about there are two very interesting types of people who are talking about this. One are people who have done incredible things and have been very successful and have done MBAs and are now saying that it's not relevant in today's world. Okay, I would still listen to them, and there are a lot of people who have pretty much very little to do with education or deeply thinking about careers, and they are also talking about it, right? So you have to also look at who's talking about it, what are the influences that person has, and what is the perspective that person has. Right? So
that is really helpful, sir. So, sir, if students are evaluating MBA programs, what are the few things that they should be thinking about? How do they choose a truly valuable MBA?
Right. Again, I said, so again, it has to be personal. One MBA will not fit everybody. Okay. So, I would like to, kind of look at this from a different perspective. Right. And this has been true forever. I mean, we've been hearing for the last 100 years that there is a gap between education and academia and industry. Right? I don't think that gap will ever be bridged completely, and I don't think it should be bridged completely, because I said education has a higher, high altitude, kind of aspiration to improve quality of life. It's not just about getting the next job. Although MBA comes pretty close to it. That's what people do an MBA for. Okay, so whether we have AI or the next new technology, there are certain attributes and skills which will always be relevant and important. For example, how do you communicate? Are you a good listener? Are you empathetic? Okay, how do you collaborate? Can you work with people? Do you give space to people? When you work with them, do they like working with you? Okay. Number 3, how do you interpret data? How do you look at data? Do you believe something because you read it somewhere, or are you the kind of person who will go deep into the subject and check for himself or herself using skills that you have learned? How do I analyze data? How do I analyze verbal as well as quantitative data? So analytical thinking, you can call all of that into and then having a sense of judgment, because that is the highest skill. can I evaluate a set of data or a set of information and come to a conclusion whether this is right or wrong? Because I'm paid to make decisions, So when I'm making a decision, do I have the capability of thinking critically? So that brings us to the next very important point, which is critical thinking. Okay. So these, and then ethics, which are becoming even more important with AI having been unleashed into our lives. AI has a lot of positives, and it's going to make a huge impact, at least near and medium term. But AI also has, a lot of, let's say, we are apprehensive about a lot of impact that AI can have in terms of, propagating fake news, or it is very difficult sometimes to figure out what is the source of information and all. So, and when the world is looking at this, kind of situation, ethical behavior, in terms of using AI, in terms of using other people's data, so ethics is no longer just a course in an MBA or in any other discipline. It's now right center of how this world is going to progress. So these skills, irrespective of what happens in the world, will always be relevant. So I call them transferable skills. They are transferred from one age to the other, they are transferred from one domain to the other, they are transferable from one job to the other. So an MBA program whose primary objective is to get you ready for the world in a long-term way, not just for the first job, I think has to be very strongly, let's say, oriented towards imparting these skills. Okay, and that means the pedagogy has to, reformat itself to make sure that these are skills that students get. So that is the first thing that I would look at when I'm choosing a B school today. Because irrespective of where I'm going to be in my career, these are important. The second thing, of course, is what kind of record do they have? You can talk to alumni to find out how they are doing in the world, and all the regular things that we look at, right? And some of these things are difficult to assess when you are outside the school and you are trying to choose one. So you have to have methods to research and find out, right? Because everybody makes all kinds of claims, right? And some people, and I'm sure that a lot of these schools do a very good job and believe they do a very good job. But as I said, as a student, you have to pick the one that suits you. So I would say, and then of course domains, right? So if you want to do an MBA and you want to get into logistics, there will be some these schools who are better than others. If you want to do it in finance, in a particular area of finance, there will be some these schools who are better than others. If you want to get into analytics, like Praxis, we are very strong with analytics. So if you want to specialize in that, then you have to look at schools like that. Okay, but fundamentally, schools that train you to think better, to learn better, to communicate, to collaborate, to work with AI, to be ethical and responsible leaders, to think critically, they are the ones, and for that they have to be agile. You can't have the traditional education mindset that the world is changing every week, but we will change our curriculum every 2 years. That will not work. So you have to look at all that.
That's a very interesting perspective, sir. So AI is transforming the professional landscape at an incredible pace. So many students are asking that how do we prepare not just for the jobs that exist today, but also the opportunities that will emerge in the future?
Right. So I can totally resonate with the younger generation, because it does look like an uncertain and ambiguous world, and the claims made by the people who understand AI are massive, right? And so I don't think anybody really knows what the future of work will look like. We are all making our own guesses, right? But I think I will go back to my earlier conversation that you have to look at fundamentally becoming a better thinker, a better learner. So you have to become adaptable, resilient. Okay, because the world, today you can look at what may happen in the next 1 or 2 years. Even I'm still not, confident enough to step my neck out to say that I know what's going to happen in 2 years. Something else may come and disrupt what we think is going to happen. But if you train yourself to be an adaptable learner, adaptation here means a lot of learning, right? Continual learning. Right, and if you adapt yourself to become a critical thinker, come what may, I will do my own analysis before I come to a conclusion about this set of data that is being offered to me or delivered to me. Then I think that fundamentally you are going to be good, right? The other important thing is that you have to collaborate with AI and the machines. All right, so you have to coexist. So I think in the near term or near medium term, the future will belong to those people who can collaborate not only well with human beings but also with machines and get the best out of the AI technology that is available to them. And which means that they have to get the best out of the machines and yet be in the right place in terms of governance and decision making. I would like to translate this into saying that you can outsource work to AI, but don't outsource your thinking to AI. Okay, so get your work done, become more productive, make innovative uses of AI, and then once you get the output of what the AI, what task you have assigned to AI, you then look at that. Use your understanding of the context, use your understanding of the domain to then sift the right information and make the right decisions. So I think that is where the world is going, and I think AI is actually making us kind of almost forcing us to get into higher skills. Because the lower skill jobs there, AI is doing pretty well. So if I'm a programmer and I used to write code, am I now, have I learned how to prompt an AI LLM to write code for me? How good am I at prompting so that the code that is written is close to what I want? And then how good am I at analyzing and assessing the code and saying whether this is what I want in the context in which I have asked, or do I need to make changes, and do I make those changes myself, or do I write another prompt saying that, this. So this whole thinking is slightly at a higher level than just writing a program. So I think I think we all have to get ready to train ourselves into higher level skills.
So, while speaking about higher skills, how do you think management education programs should evolve or are already evolving to become AI ready?
Well, you've noticed that in your first year at Praxis, there was a time that professors were basically delivering knowledge. Now, you have more knowledge at your fingertips than, or as much knowledge at your fingertips as any professor has. So, what we are now making students do is look at several scenarios of let's say you're doing something in risk management. You can get an LLM to create several scenarios. You can play around with variables. You can, look at things that you would have taken weeks to do, right? And now, you will now have to train yourself to look at those scenarios, look at those results, and decide that in the context of your assignment or maybe the project that you are doing, how do these scenarios work? Why did you write the prompt that you did? How did you decide to pick one of the results as the result that suits you the best? So these are, again, there's a lot of evaluation and judgment going on. Whereas 5 years back or 10 years back, you would actually be given the task of, creating those scenarios by, writing equations and, doing the math and all that, right? Which is, of course, something that you should learn anyway. But Right now, you can go to a higher level skill and say that, okay, somebody else is doing that for me. I have an assistant, a friend who's doing all that for me. Now, what do I do with that information? And what is the right decision given the information that I've got? So if the management pedagogy moves in that direction and challenges the students with exercises like that, then the management education is kind of evolving in the right direction and equipping the students with the skills and the training. It's not just a skill; it's a training of the brain. It's training of your mind to think in a particular, think critically, to evaluate things. Otherwise, as students, a lot of pedagogy doesn't actually ask you to evaluate. It just asks you to operate and do things. So that's going to change.
So if we look at AI from the hiring perspectives, how do you think the employer expectations are changing?
I think number one, the employers expect you to be very comfortable with a lot of AI tools. Okay, and when I say comfortable, doesn't mean that you are comfortable using them. Comfortable means, are you using them judiciously? Are you selecting the right tool? Are you writing the right prompt? Are you getting the right information and making the right decision using it? And are you, going back to whatever I said earlier, are you outsourcing thinking, or are you keeping, or are you demonstrating a higher level of thinking while working with AI? So that is something they will look at. They will also look at the transferable skills, because these skills are the skills that are still with the human species. So they are becoming more important than ever before. Your ability to tell a story, your ability to contextualize, your ability to think critically, because now you are assessing, results from a machine, and you are, so those, the skills that we spoke about, those are the skills that corporates will look at now more and more.
Yes, so it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense, but it doesn't make life easier. But I think it makes it more interesting. Yeah, so Pallavi, let's change roles for now, because we also need information from people of your generation. It's an excellent opportunity for me to kind of pick your brain. So you've spent 1 year at Praxis. You've done very well in your academic academic journey here. So you also, this is not a conversation that has started today.
Yes.
This MBA thing and all that. So why did you choose to do it?
So before coming to Praxis, I was working for a short duration. So when you are working in a role, it is almost like hitting a wall. You are restricted to one role, one dynamic. But given the fast moving pace of the business world, I felt like I needed to dig in deeper to understand how an organization works, where exactly does the strategy meets the execution. So when I came to Praxis, it gave me a complete clarity about how exactly a business functions, and more confidence about starting something of myself, because getting to do something on your own requires you to have complete in-depth knowledge of all the things. So that was one thing. And second, I think MBA is something which provides you with a lot of opportunities, not just in academics, but in other fields as well. So that is another reason I wanted more exposure.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm just feeding off from what you said. For me, an MBA gives you the working of a business in a nutshell. What you would learn without doing an MBA by sometimes making mistakes, sometimes doing the right things over 8 years, 7-8 years, an MBA will kind of collapse that into 2 years. Because basically an MBA helps you connect the dots.
Yes.
If I make this decision in marketing, how is it going to impact my P&L?
Yes.
Right. And this, if there is a problem with my supply chain, how does it impact my, so a decision by HR could also impact every other function, right? So yeah, and also of course confidence building, which you talked about, right? Yeah. So I think that, so what about AI, right? So do you do you and your people from your batch also think about AI and how is it going to impact your career? And are you slightly uncomfortable with what's happening with AI?
Sir, I think there are two perspectives to it. So we are also curious about it, but it's so uncertain at this point of time that it does create fear. But I've realized from personal experiences that the more we engage with the tool or with AI, it does reduces the anxiety and it helps us do our work better. So I think exposure to the AI tools is very important to build that confidence with it.
Yeah, I think exposure and also, are you using it judicially? And that also comes with training. So I think you're right. I think if you are anxious about something, then if you engage with it, your anxiety goes down. So I think that's absolutely right. And I think if you want to use 2 or 3 words to describe your experience at Praxis. I mean, it could have been any other school. I'm just saying Praxis because you studied at Praxis, which you feel that you would not have got had you not pursued this course. I mean, anything that comes to your mind.
Sir, first thing would definitely be AI, being equipped with it. Second thing would be being in uncomfortable roles. So the discomfort has pushed me to grow, not just in academics, but I've tried different roles here, different events, which I had not applied in my life earlier.
This one is one of them, right?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
And third one would definitely be networking. So I've met a lot of people, a lot of professors. I've also done a lot of events here, hosted a lot of them. So this has enabled me to meet a lot of people, put different perspectives to whatever I used to think about.
Yeah, so you are giving me more and more answers to the questions that you yourself asked that, why a community staying together for 2 years makes a lot of sense when you are, you're preparing for the outside world.
Yes. So what was the original vision behind building Praxis and what was the gap that you were trying to address?
See, one B school can't address, societal gaps, but yeah, you do what you can in your own small way. So, Praxis has an interesting history. It started by practitioners. Most of us have spent close to 2 decades working in the industry. So that I think is a differentiating factor for us because we look at this whole business learning in a different way. So I always heard people complaining that management trainees don't know what to expect in the industry, and there's a big gap between academia and industry and all of that. So there are 2 ways to address that. One is to keep complaining, and the other is to do something to help address that. So that was the basic vision of Praxis, was to bring the academic process and academic content of Praxis, make it more relevant for the industry. But when we started Praxis, we never imagined the industry will move so fast. Yeah, but that was the original.
So as we close, what message would you like to give to the young audience and whose future is shaped by uncertainty and change?
Yeah, so first thing is I totally understand that these are challenging times, not just from the AI perspective or all that, also geopolitical things that are happening right now. Okay, so the world is in a strange place right now, and there are apprehensions. But I think the way to deal with that is, I'm telling you, the way to deal with that is to become more, let's say, equipped to build a career, right? So the more you equip yourself, the readier, so to speak, you will be for the world. So my message to all the youngsters out there is, we understand the anxiety. But if you want to address the anxiety, equip yourself. Okay, engage with the subjects of your choice. Engage with AI any way you have to engage with it, and do an analysis of your own strengths. Okay, what you enjoy doing, what you are good at, and pursue a career which kind of combines both. And I'm sure that if people do that, they will be successful.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
This
you.
was an insightful conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me.
And to everyone watching, the future is changing rapidly. The real question is not whether change will happen. The real question is whether we are preparing ourselves to lead it. Thank you again. This is Pallavi Shrivastava. See you in the next episode of the Praxis Pulse.